It was a typical Monday morning when I received the call that would change my life. I had worked at this company for over 15 years, dedicated my time, energy, and passion into every project I was assigned. I had built relationships, earned the trust of colleagues, and worked my way up to a position I was proud of. But none of that seemed to matter to Ethan, my boss's son, who had just taken over the company. I had heard rumors for weeks that Ethan was taking charge. The whispers in the office were hard to ignore. People were nervous, unsure of what the future would look like with him at the helm. There were those who hoped that Ethan would be more innovative, more modern in his approach. Others, like myself, feared that he would make reckless decisions based on his lack of experience. That morning, as I sat in my office going over emails, I received an invitation to a meeting with Ethan. I was confused. I hadn't been called into a meeting with him before, but, as always, I brushed it off and assumed it was just a routine check-in. When I arrived in his office, Ethan was sitting behind the desk, his hands steepled in front of him, his face as emotionless as ever. Without even offering a greeting, he looked at me with an air of authority that didn't belong to someone who had just stepped into the role. He was still learning the ropes, and yet there was a chilling confidence in his demeanor. "Lily," he said, his voice sharp and direct, "I've been looking over the team's performance and I've decided that we're going in a different direction. Your position is being eliminated." I was speechless. I thought I had misheard him. Fired? After 15 years of loyal service, I was being let go by the son of the man I had worked for all these years? This couldn't be real. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. "Ethan, I've been here longer than you've been with the company. What's going on? Is this some sort of joke?" He looked up from his desk, unblinking, and gave me the coldest smile. "It's not a joke, Lily. We're streamlining the team, and unfortunately, your position is no longer needed. I need people who can keep up with the changes I'm making, and frankly, you're just not a fit anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I was shocked, but I couldn't show him how much it hurt. I had seen this kind of behavior before, young, entitled people with power who thought they knew better than those who had put in the time and effort. Ethan hadn't earned the respect of anyone here yet, and yet he felt entitled to throw me away without a second thought. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent years making this company what it is. You're just going to toss me aside without any consideration?" His eyes flashed briefly with annoyance, but he quickly masked it. "I don't have time for emotional arguments, Lily. This is business. I'm sorry, but this is the way it is." As he stood up, signaling that the conversation was over, I felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and frustration. Fired. Eliminated. The words echoed in my head. I had dedicated my life to this company, and now I was being discarded as though I was nothing. But as I walked out of his office, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of clarity. Maybe this was the sign I needed. Maybe I wasn't meant to work for a company run by someone who didn't value hard work or loyalty. I walked out of Ethan's office, my mind swirling with a mixture of disbelief and anger. It felt like a bad dream, the kind you wake up from only to realize that it wasn't real. But this was very real. I had just been fired by someone with little to no experience, someone who didn't even understand the depth of what it took to run the company. It felt like a slap in the face. I didn't know what to do next. My hands were shaking, and my thoughts were a mess. For the past 15 years, I had poured everything I had into this company, believing in the mission, the people, and the work we were doing. I had climbed the ladder, earned the respect of my colleagues, and built a career I was proud of. Now, just like that, it was all gone. I walked to my car in a daze, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Was this really happening? Was I really just going to walk away from everything I had worked for, everything I had built? I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, not knowing where I was going but feeling the overwhelming need to escape. I needed to think. I needed space. So I drove to a nearby park and sat in my car, staring out at the peaceful surroundings, trying to make sense of it all. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out. It was a message from Sophie, my closest colleague at the company. "Hey, I heard what happened," the message read. "Are you okay? If you need anything, I'm here. Let me know." Sophie had been a great friend over the years, and seeing her support meant the world to me. I quickly texted back, "Thanks, Sophie. I'm still processing everything. I'll reach out soon." I sat back, my eyes closed, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Ethan had no idea what he was doing. He was so wrapped up in his new position, so focused on making changes to prove himself, that he didn't realize the damage he was causing. He thought firing me was going to make the company better, but he had no idea how much he was going to lose by making that decision. This wasn't just about me being let go. This was about the company he was inheriting and the people he was alienating. He was about to learn that leadership wasn't about throwing people away for the sake of efficiency. It was about respecting those who had already put in the work, the people who knew what it took to make things run smoothly. As I sat in my car, I realized something important. I didn't need Ethan's approval. I didn't need to work at a company that didn't value loyalty and hard work. I had built my career from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let a decision made by someone like him ruin my future. I took a deep breath, and for the first time that day, I started to feel a sense of clarity. This was a new beginning. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to allow Ethan's rash decision to hold me back. I had something he didn't have: experience, knowledge, the drive to succeed. It was time to move forward, to find something that truly valued my skills, my dedication, and my work ethic. I wasn't going to be stuck working for someone who didn't respect me or my contributions. My phone buzzed again, this time from my best friend Rachel. She knew what was going on, and I could tell from the first line of her message that she was worried. "Lily, what happened? I'm so sorry. Let's talk, okay?" I felt a slight smile creep onto my face as I typed back, "I'm okay, Rachel. Just a bit shaken up, but I'm going to be fine. I've got a plan." I knew I did. I had options. More importantly, I had determination. I wasn't going to let this setback ruin me. I would take this challenge head on, and I would come out stronger on the other side. The next few days were a blur. I spent hours combing through my savings, looking into new job opportunities, and most importantly, reflecting on what I really wanted out of my career. The pain of being fired by Ethan hadn't completely subsided, but I was starting to realize something. This was a blessing in disguise. For years, I had been stuck in the same routine, working long hours and constantly putting the company first. I had built my identity around my job, around the value I thought I brought to the team, but in reality, I had been undervaluing myself. I had given everything, and yet I was nothing more than an asset to be disposed of when someone new came into power. That wasn't how a career should feel. That wasn't how I should feel. It was time to redefine what success looked like for me. I reached out to some of my professional contacts, letting them know I was looking for new opportunities. The responses were mixed, some expressing sympathy, others offering job leads. But no matter what, I knew I had to take control of my own narrative. I wasn't going to let Ethan's decision define me or keep me from finding something better. A few days later, I received a call from Lena, a former colleague from my previous company. She had always respected my work, and I had heard rumors that she had recently started her own consultancy. When I picked up, her voice was warm but urgent. "Lily, I heard about what happened. I know it's tough right now, but I think I may have a solution for you. I'm building my business, and I could really use someone like you. You've always had an incredible work ethic and a keen eye for strategy. Would you consider coming on board?" Her offer came as a relief, but also as a test to see if I was ready to step out of my comfort zone and pursue something new. I wasn't sure if I was prepared to dive into something entirely different, but the thought of doing something I was passionate about, on my own terms, was too tempting to ignore. "I'd love to hear more about it," I said, feeling my heart begin to race at the possibilities. Over the next few days, Lena and I talked more about her company, her goals, and how I could fit into the picture. She wanted me to help grow the business, build new client relationships, and bring in my expertise. It was a chance to prove that I was capable of so much more than what Ethan had reduced me to. By the end of the week, I made my decision. I was going to take the leap. I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself or waiting for someone else to give me a chance. I was going to create my own opportunities. I called Lena back to accept her offer, and within days I was diving headfirst into the work. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, and the fear of the unknown lingered in the back of my mind. But with every new project, every client I connected with, I began to feel the fire inside me reignite. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Meanwhile, Ethan's company was slowly starting to feel the effects of his rash decisions. It wasn't long before word started spreading that morale was plummeting, and employees who had been there for years were leaving in droves. Ethan didn't know how to lead, and without experienced people like me, he was going to learn that the hard way. But I didn't feel the need to watch his downfall. I had moved on. The fire of betrayal still smoldered in the back of my mind, but I wasn't going to waste my energy on someone who had shown me so little respect. I was better than that. One evening, as I sat in my new office looking out at the city skyline, I realized just how far I had come. I wasn't stuck anymore. I was free to choose my path, free to build something meaningful on my own terms. It was a slow climb, but I was building something real, something that was all mine, and I was proud of it. As the weeks passed, I started to feel more at ease with my new position at Lena's consultancy. The initial nerves and doubts had faded, replaced with a sense of excitement I hadn't felt in years. I was building my own success from the ground up, and for the first time in a long while, I felt in control. The work was challenging, but it was also fulfilling. I was using my skills to help others succeed, and it felt like I was finally doing something meaningful. But as things began to stabilize, I couldn't help but reflect on how I had ended up here. How had I allowed myself to be in a position where my career depended entirely on someone else's whims? How had I let my self-worth be tied to a company that didn't value loyalty or experience? The truth was, I had been too focused on being the perfect employee, the one everyone could rely on. But in doing so, I had lost sight of something crucial: my own value. I had allowed myself to become a cog in someone else's machine, thinking that if I just worked hard enough, I would be recognized for it. But that recognition never came. Ethan had come in with his blind ambition, and without a second thought, he dismissed the people who made the company what it was. People like me. It took me a while to realize that I wasn't just a victim of his actions. I had allowed myself to be treated this way. I had allowed him to make decisions about my life without considering what was best for me. The truth was, I had never taken the time to figure out what I wanted. I had always put my work first, and in doing so, I had lost sight of what really mattered to me. As I sat in my new office, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to let the past dictate my future anymore. I wasn't going to be a bystander in my own life. I was going to make decisions that were best for me, not for anyone else, not for any company. I had learned the hard way that no one would fight for my success like I would. Lena noticed the change in me. One day she pulled me aside after a meeting and gave me a smile. "I've seen the way you've handled things here, Lily," she said. "You've come into this role with so much strength and determination. You've got the potential to do more than just manage projects. I can see you leading teams and growing this company even further. What do you think about taking on a bigger leadership role?" Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. I hadn't considered leadership before. I had always been content doing my job, excelling at what I was good at. But the thought of being in charge, of truly owning my success, was something I had never even allowed myself to imagine. "I'd be open to it," I said, my voice steady but filled with surprise. "I've always wanted to be in a position where I could make a bigger impact." Lena's eyes lit up. "I knew you had it in you. Let's start planning for it. I believe you're more than capable of leading this company to even greater success." For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being seen, not just for my work, but for who I truly was. I had spent so much time hiding behind the idea of being a loyal employee that I had forgotten about my own potential. Now, Lena was offering me the chance to take the reins and prove what I was truly capable of. That night, I sat down and thought about everything I had been through, the firing, the betrayal, and the months of uncertainty. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that those challenges had been the catalyst for my growth. I had learned so much about myself, about the kind of person I wanted to be, and the kind of leader I wanted to become. As I looked out the window of my office, I saw the city lights twinkling below. The future suddenly felt full of possibility, and for the first time in years, I felt truly excited about what was to come. I wasn't just going to let my past define me anymore. I was going to create a future where I called the shots. The next few months were a whirlwind of excitement, challenges, and growth. I had officially stepped into a leadership role at Lena's consultancy, and with it came a new sense of responsibility and empowerment. I wasn't just working for someone else anymore. I was building something that was mine, guiding a team toward success, and making decisions that mattered. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, but I knew this was the path I had to take. The learning curve was steep, but I was driven. Every morning, I woke up excited to tackle the day's challenges, whether it was negotiating with clients, managing projects, or brainstorming with my team. I had always been good at what I did, but now I had the ability to shape the direction of the company, to make decisions that would impact its future. As my confidence grew, so did my respect within the company. My team members, who had once seen me as just a fellow colleague, now looked to me for guidance. They respected my vision and my ability to lead, and I began to feel a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in years. This was my time. I often found myself reflecting on the path that had brought me here. The day Ethan fired me was still fresh in my memory. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, but now I could see it as the beginning of something far greater. I wasn't just a casualty of bad leadership. I was someone who had learned from that experience and was stronger because of it. I knew that I had the power to shape my destiny. The way Ethan had treated me had made me realize that I could never again let someone else dictate my worth. I was in control now, and that was a feeling I was starting to savor. But as I settled into this new chapter, I also realized that leadership wasn't just about making decisions. It was about building trust, fostering collaboration, and creating a positive work culture. I spent hours working with my team, offering guidance and listening to their ideas. The more I invested in them, the more I saw the results in their work. We were achieving things together that none of us thought possible. One afternoon, I received a call from an old friend, Carla, who worked at another firm. She had heard about my new role and wanted to catch up. During our conversation, she mentioned that her company was going through some major layoffs and restructuring, and they had an opening for someone with my skill set. She offered me the chance to interview for a leadership position there. The opportunity sounded incredible, but something inside me told me that I wasn't ready to leave what I had built here at Lena's consultancy. "I really appreciate the offer, Carla," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm really happy where I am. I've worked hard to get to this point, and I'm not ready to leave yet." Carla was understanding, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. "I get it, Lily, but just know that the door is always open. You're capable of so much, and I know you'd do amazing things." I hung up the phone, and for the first time I realized just how much I had changed. A few months ago, I might have jumped at the opportunity without thinking twice, but now I felt deeply connected to the work I was doing and the people I was working with. I wasn't just looking for a new job or a new title. I was building a career I could be proud of, one that was based on my values, my hard work, and my ability to lead with integrity. As the days passed, I started receiving more offers, not just for jobs, but for collaborations and speaking engagements. People were starting to notice the difference in my approach, and I knew that all the struggles I had faced had been worth it. I was no longer just a part of someone else's company. I was creating my own legacy. As the months passed, the changes in my life became more profound. I had truly started to settle into my role as a leader, not just within the company, but within my own life. The woman I was becoming was someone I had never imagined I could be: confident, assertive, and most importantly, in control of my own destiny. The consultancy was thriving. Lena's trust in me had paid off, and we were bringing in more clients than ever before. My team was firing on all cylinders, and I felt proud of the work we were doing. But the greatest transformation wasn't just in the business, it was in me. I had stopped being the person who let others dictate my path. I was no longer the employee who worked herself to exhaustion just to please her boss. I had found my voice, and I was using it to create the life I wanted. But as much as I loved my new role, I couldn't help but look back and think about the turning point that had led me here, the day Ethan fired me. It had been a devastating blow, but in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I had spent so much of my life trying to make my parents proud, trying to impress employers, and in the process, I had lost sight of myself. But in this new chapter, I had found me again. I had been forced to rebuild, not just my career, but my entire outlook on life. I wasn't looking for approval anymore. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I was already enough. I had learned that true success wasn't about climbing the corporate ladder or gaining titles. It was about finding fulfillment in what you do, building relationships, and taking ownership of your choices. One day I sat down with Lena and we talked about how far we had come. The company was doing well and we had plans to expand even further. But I also shared my personal journey with her, how I had gone from being fired and feeling worthless to becoming a leader in my own right. "I can't tell you how proud I am of you, Lily," Lena said, a smile of admiration in her eyes. "You've truly come into your own. You've turned adversity into opportunity, and you're leading with strength and grace. Not everyone could do that." Her words meant the world to me. I wasn't just working for a paycheck anymore. I was building something real, something that reflected who I was, strong, resilient, and capable of achieving anything I set my mind to. I had transformed from the woman who had been let down by her family and fired by an entitled boss into a force to be reckoned with. The phone call from my parents that came a year later was unexpected. After everything that had happened, I wasn't sure what to expect. My mom's voice was soft, almost hesitant when she spoke. "Lily," she said, "we've been thinking a lot about what happened. And I know we made mistakes. We've been proud of you, but we didn't always show it. You've done things we never thought possible. We just want you to know that we're here, and we're proud of you." I sat back for a moment, letting the words sink in. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start, and honestly, it was all I needed to hear. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past, but about accepting it and moving forward. I had forgiven them long ago, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. "I appreciate that, Mom," I said quietly. "I've found my way, and I've learned to trust myself. I'm in a good place now, and I'm not looking back." And that was the truth. I wasn't looking back. I had let go of the past, and I had embraced the future with open arms. I was finally living life on my own terms. The story of my journey wasn't just about overcoming betrayal or facing adversity. It was about reclaiming my power, finding my voice, and never letting anyone else determine my worth. I had learned that the most important relationship I would ever have was the one with myself. The future was mine to shape, and I wasn't going to waste another moment waiting for someone else to give me permission to succeed. I had everything I needed: the strength, the resilience, and the confidence to create the life I wanted. And with that, I took another step forward, knowing that nothing and no one could hold me back anymore.